The invasion begins. The stars glittered in the endless void of space, serene and unassuming, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding in orbit around Earth. Admiral Grayson stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute, his grizzled features bathed in the pale glow of the tactical display. Red markers swarmed across the holographic projection, each one representing an alien vessel intent on eradicating humanity. The invasion had come without warning, vast fleets descending from hyperspace like a swarm of locusts, consuming everything in their path. Status report. Grayson barked, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Admiral," replied Lieutenant Carter, her face pale but determined, "the alien fleet has breached our orbital defenses. We've lost the UNS Pioneer and the Vanguard. Ground forces report heavy casualties in New York, Beijing, and Johannesburg. Their weapons—" She hesitated, glancing at the Admiral with disbelief. "Sir, their weapons aren't working as intended." Grayson frowned, his steel-gray eyes narrowing. "Explain." "They're firing some kind of energy weapon. Plasma, maybe. But it's having no effect on our troops. Initial reports suggest that the beams are dissipating harmlessly on impact. Some soldiers even claim it tickles." The bridge fell silent, save for the hum of the ship's systems. The room was filled with a mixture of confusion and cautious hope. Grayson turned to his science officer, Dr. Elena Vasquez, who was already poring over the data. "Dr. Vasquez, is this true?" "It appears so, Admiral," Vasquez replied, her voice tinged with amazement. "Preliminary analysis suggests that the alien weapons are tuned to disrupt cellular structures in most known life forms. But humans, for some reason, our biology is resistant. The energy is dissipated harmlessly across our cellular matrix. It's as if we were never meant to be affected." Grayson's mind raced. For the first time in hours, a glimmer of hope sparked in his chest. "So, you're saying we're immune to their primary weapon?" "Yes, sir. At least for now." The alien perspective. Aboard the alien flagship, the Zeractol, Supreme Commander Vrex Zilkar seethed with frustration. His mandibles clicked angrily as he reviewed the battle reports. The human resistance was supposed to be a formality, a brief skirmish before total planetary domination. Yet here they were, hours into the invasion, with minimal progress. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his voice reverberating through the ship's command chamber. "Our weapons have obliterated countless species. Why do these humans not fall?" A subordinate, a pale-skinned technician with trembling limbs, responded hesitantly. "Supreme Commander, initial scans suggest that the humans possess a unique cellular composition. Their bodies neutralize the energy of our plasma beams. It is unprecedented, unacceptable." Vrex roared, slamming a clawed fist onto the console. "If our primary weapons are useless, deploy the ground forces. Crush them with brute strength if we must." The subordinate hesitated. "Supreme Commander, reports indicate that their morale is rising. They appear to be emboldened by our weapons' failure. Some are even laughing at us." Vrex's mandibles flared in anger, and he issued an order that echoed across the fleet. "Send everything we have. We will drown their laughter in blood." Humanity's realization. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Soldiers on the front lines, initially terrified by the alien onslaught, found themselves emboldened. Videos surfaced of troops standing unharmed amidst alien plasma barrages, laughing and taunting their attackers. In one clip, a soldier stood atop a wrecked vehicle, shouting, "Is that all you've got?" My grandma's hugs hit harder. The footage went viral, becoming a rallying cry for humanity's defiance. Admiral Grayson, watching the reports from the Resolute, allowed himself a rare smile. "Dr. Vasquez, if this immunity holds, we might just have a chance, but we can't rely on it alone. Begin coordinating with ground forces to exploit this advantage. I want hit-and-run tactics. Make the aliens regret stepping foot on our planet." "Yes, sir," Vasquez replied. The first counterattack. On the ground, Captain Sarah Mitchell led her unit through the ruins of downtown Chicago. The alien invaders, towering insectoid creatures clad in gleaming exoskeletons, advanced relentlessly. But without their energy weapons, they were forced to rely on physical combat. And humanity had centuries of experience in war. "Eyes up, people," Mitchell called out, her voice steady. "They may not have their fancy plasma guns, but they're still dangerous. Stick to the plan. Divide and conquer." The squad moved with precision, using the urban terrain to their advantage. Alien soldiers, unused to such tactics, fell victim to ambushes and traps. In one daring maneuver, Mitchell's team lured a group of aliens into a collapsed building, only to detonate charges that buried them under tons of rubble. The tide was turning. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity was on the offensive. A global effort. As battles raged across the globe, humanity's resilience shone. In Africa, tribes united to defend their lands, using guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver the alien forces. In Europe, ancient castles were repurposed as fortresses, their stone walls impervious to alien claws. In Asia, coordinated strikes from high-tech drones rained destruction on alien supply lines. The United Nations, once a forum for endless debate, transformed into a hub of wartime coordination. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the limits of humanity's immunity, while engineers developed new weapons to exploit the aliens' vulnerabilities. Admiral Vasquez reported during a briefing, "Our immunity seems to be universal across all humans. However, we're detecting minor variations in effectiveness. We need to keep studying this phenomenon." "Do it," Grayson replied. "If the aliens figure out a way to bypass our immunity, we're finished. But for now, we fight." A new kind of hope. The part ends with a powerful image. A lone soldier standing atop a hill, the Earth's flag fluttering behind him. Alien ships burn in the distance, and the sounds of battle fade into the background. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity has hope. Not because of advanced technology or superior numbers, but because of something uniquely human, a resilience that no alien weapon could break. "Let's show them what we're made of," Grayson said, his voice resolute. And so the fight for Earth continued. A world united. The sun rose over a battered Earth, its golden light illuminating cities reduced to rubble and fields scorched by the chaos of alien warfare. Yet, amidst the destruction, there was a strange sense of unity growing, a determination to survive and thrive, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Humanity had faced extinction before, but this time, they had an unexpected advantage. They were immune to the aliens' most powerful weapons, and for the first time in history, the people of Earth stood together as one. Admiral Grayson watched from the bridge of the UNS Resolute as a fleet of hastily repurposed civilian spacecraft began launching from Earth's surface. The ships, painted in the colors of dozens of nations, carried supplies, reinforcements, and hope to the orbital stations still fighting off alien invaders. "We've never been more united," Grayson muttered to himself. Lieutenant Carter approached, handing him a tablet filled with updates. "Admiral, reports are coming in from around the globe. Resistance movements are coordinating with the military. Civilians are forming militia groups. Even the private sector is stepping in. Corporations are converting factories to produce weapons and supplies." Grayson nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "Good. We'll need every resource we can muster. Have the UN send out another call for volunteers. The more hands we have, the better our chances." The rise of the people. Across the world, ordinary people were rising to the challenge. In Tokyo, engineers worked tirelessly to convert maglev trains into high-speed troop transports. In the United States, farmers armed their tractors with makeshift weaponry, turning them into formidable vehicles for guerrilla warfare. In the slums of Rio de Janeiro, gangs that had once fought each other now joined forces to defend their city against alien patrols. One story stood out. A group of miners in South Africa who had tunneled beneath an alien encampment, using explosives to collapse the ground and destroy the enemy forces above. Their bravery was broadcast worldwide, inspiring countless others to take action. In a live broadcast, the UN Secretary-General addressed the world. "This is not a war of nations. This is a war for humanity. No matter your background, your language, or your beliefs, we are all human, and we will stand together." Scientists on the brink. In a hidden laboratory deep beneath Geneva, Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team worked tirelessly to understand the immunity that had become humanity's salvation. The lab was a hive of activity, filled with the hum of computers, the clinking of glassware, and the murmurs of scientists poring over data. "Run the test again," Vasquez ordered, her voice sharp with urgency. An assistant hesitated. "Dr. Vasquez, we've run this simulation a dozen times. The results are consistent. Human cells dissipate the alien energy due to their unique molecular structure. It's almost as if we were designed to resist it." Vasquez paused, her brow furrowing. Designed? By whom? The room fell silent. The idea was unsettling, but there was no time to dwell on it. "We'll explore that question later," she said finally. "For now, let's focus on maximizing this advantage. If we can replicate this immunity in our technology, we might be able to turn their weapons against them." Her words sparked a wave of renewed energy among the scientists. They began developing prototypes for shields and armor that could mimic human immunity, potentially giving humanity a critical edge in the battles to come. Diplomacy in action. In New York, the United Nations headquarters buzzed with activity. Representatives from every nation gathered in the General Assembly, not to argue as they often did, but to collaborate. "Operation Unity is now in effect," announced General Haruto Nakamura, head of the Global Defense Coalition. "Our forces are coordinating across all continents. Supply lines are being secured, and resistance cells are being armed and trained. This is a fight we can win, but only if we work together." For the first time, political leaders set aside their differences. Treaties were signed, trade routes were opened, and resources were shared without hesitation. Even long-standing rivalries were forgotten in the face of a common enemy. The UN also reached out to Earth's few extraterrestrial allies, diplomatic contacts with smaller alien civilizations that had long been oppressed by the invaders. These new allies provided crucial intelligence, revealing weaknesses in the alien hierarchy and strategies for disrupting their chain of command. The turning point. As the global effort gained momentum, a critical moment arrived. Satellite imagery revealed a massive alien factory ship in orbit, producing reinforcements for the invasion. If humanity could destroy it, they could cripple the aliens' ability to sustain their assault. Admiral Grayson convened a meeting with his top officers. "This factory ship is their lifeline," he said, pointing to the holographic display. "If we take it out, we buy ourselves time to regroup and fortify. But it won't be easy. They'll be expecting us." Captain Sarah Mitchell, now a celebrated hero for her daring ground operations, joined the briefing via hologram. "Admiral, my team is ready. We'll coordinate a diversionary attack on the ground to draw their forces away. Just give the word." Grayson nodded. "Make it happen, Captain, and good luck." The factory ship raid. The assault on the factory ship was a coordinated masterpiece. Earth's forces launched a multi-pronged attack, with fighter squadrons engaging alien interceptors, while stealth bombers slipped through the chaos to target the ship's vulnerable engines. On the ground, Mitchell's team executed their diversion flawlessly, drawing alien troops into a trap that left them exposed to devastating airstrikes. Inside the factory ship, a team of elite commandos infiltrated the facility, planting charges on critical systems. The operation was tense, every moment filled with the risk of discovery. But the commandos succeeded, escaping just as the charges detonated. The explosion lit up the sky, visible from Earth's surface. Cheers erupted in cities and towns around the globe. For the first time, humanity had struck a decisive blow against their invaders. Hope rekindled. As the alien forces scrambled to recover, humanity celebrated its newfound momentum. People danced in the streets, sang songs of resistance, and painted murals honoring the heroes of the war. But the victory was bittersweet. Grayson knew the fight was far from over. "We've won a battle," he told his crew, "but the war is just beginning. Let's make sure the galaxy remembers who we are." The part ends with a montage of humanity's resilience. Scientists unveiling new prototypes, soldiers training alongside civilians, and children playing under the protective gaze of their communities. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. They were united, determined, and ready to take the fight to the stars. The alien perspective. The corridors of the Zaractal, the alien flagship, were dimly lit, a stark contrast to the brilliance of the stars outside. Supreme Commander Vrex Zilkar paced the command chamber, his clawed feet clicking against the metallic floor. The failure of the invasion so far was more than a military setback. It was a humiliation. Never before had the Zurak Dominion encountered a species so utterly immune to their advanced weaponry. "Explain this anomaly," Vrex demanded, his mandibles flaring wide, as he glared at his science officer, Liqural Taz. Taz, a wiry creature with translucent skin and bioluminescent veins, adjusted the holographic display before him. The three-dimensional model of a human rotated slowly in the air, its cells glowing faintly. "Supreme Commander, our analysis reveals that human cellular structures are unique," Taz began cautiously. "Their cells dissipate energy in a manner we've never encountered before. Plasma weapons, designed to disrupt biological cohesion, are rendered ineffective by their molecular density and energy absorption capabilities." Vrex slammed a clawed fist onto the console, causing the hologram to flicker. "Are you telling me our weapons, which have conquered countless worlds, are useless against these primitives?" Taz hesitated. "Not entirely, Commander. Their immunity is remarkable, but not absolute. We've begun development on an adaptive weapon, a bioenergy disruptor that targets their nervous system rather than their cellular structure. However, it will take time. Time is a luxury we do not have." Vrex growled, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Our forces are losing ground. The humans are turning their immunity into a weapon of morale. They mock us, laugh at us. This cannot stand." Alien Council divided. In the depths of the Zaractal, the Alien High Council convened in a circular chamber adorned with holographic projections of conquered worlds. The council, composed of representatives from the various species subjugated under the Zurak Dominion, was a cacophony of arguments. "This invasion was supposed to be a demonstration of our superiority," bellowed Councillor Zornik, a reptilian figure with scales that shimmered like oil. "Instead, we are the ones being humiliated." Councillor Lyraki, a slender insectoid being with iridescent wings, spoke with a more measured tone. "The humans are unlike any species we've encountered. Perhaps their immunity suggests a greater purpose, a role we do not yet understand." "Greater purpose," Zornik spat. "They are an infestation, nothing more." Lyraki tilted her head, her wings fluttering gently. "And yet, they resist us with a determination we have never faced. Perhaps it is we who have underestimated them." The council debated endlessly, some advocating for total annihilation, others urging caution. Vrex Zilkar listened in growing frustration. "Enough," he roared, silencing the chamber. "This council will act as it always has, through strength. If one weapon fails, we create another. If one strategy falters, we adapt. The humans will be crushed." End of discussion. A rift among the invaders. Not all aboard the Zaractal shared Vrex's unwavering conviction. Deep in the research sector, Liqural Taz worked tirelessly on the adaptive weapon, but doubts gnawed at him. He had spent years studying the biology of countless species, but humans were different. Their resilience, their unpredictability. It fascinated him. Late one cycle, Taz accessed the ship's restricted archives, searching for any precedent of a species like humanity. What he found was deeply unsettling. Records from centuries ago detailed a prophecy spoken by a long-extinct race. Beware the children of Saul. They will rise from the ashes of their world, immune to the weapons of the galaxy, and their laughter will signal the fall of empires. Taz sat back, his bioluminescent veins pulsing erratically. Could the humans truly be the children of Saul? If so, what did it mean for the Dominion? And for himself? The alien soldiers struggle. On the front lines, alien soldiers faced their own challenges. Warriors who had once been invincible now found themselves vulnerable against human ingenuity. Plasma rifles, once symbols of dominance, were discarded in favor of crude melee weapons scavenged from human battlegrounds. One such soldier, a towering brute named Korvac, led a squad through the ruins of Johannesburg. The humans had turned the city into a labyrinth of traps and ambush points, using their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. "Stay alert," Korvac growled to his squad, his voice a low rumble. "These humans fight like cornered beasts." Moments later, a deafening explosion shattered the silence. Smoke and debris filled the air as a human-made IED detonated, scattering the alien soldiers. Korvac rose to his feet, battered but alive. Through the smoke, he saw a group of human fighters advancing, their weapons crude but effective. To his shock, they were laughing, their voices ringing out like a battle cry. "Come on, you overgrown bugs," one human shouted, a grin on his face. "Let's see what you've got." For the first time in his life, Korvac felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Seeds of rebellion. As the war dragged on, whispers of dissent began to spread among the Dominion's lower ranks. Soldiers and officers alike questioned the wisdom of continuing a war against an enemy they could not defeat. On a remote outpost, a young alien officer named Kellera met with a group of disgruntled soldiers. "The Supreme Commander's pride is leading us to ruin," Kellera said, her voice low but firm. "The humans are not like the others we've conquered. They fight for more than survival. They fight for their very existence. We cannot win this war." One soldier, his mandibles clicking nervously, asked, "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we find another way," Kellera replied. "If we cannot defeat them, perhaps we can learn from them." The seeds of rebellion were sown, and Kellera's words would soon spread across the Dominion. Humanity's unexpected ally. Back on Earth, the Resistance was unaware of the turmoil within the alien ranks. Admiral Grayson and his team continued to plan their next moves, focusing on fortifying their defenses and exploiting the aliens' weaknesses. But one night, a strange transmission was intercepted by the UNS Resolute. It was a series of coordinates, accompanied by a single message: "We share a common enemy." Dr. Vasquez analyzed the signal. "Admiral, this isn't human technology. It's alien. Someone on their side is trying to communicate with us." Grayson frowned, his mind racing. "A trap?" "Possibly," Vasquez admitted. "But if it's genuine, it could be the opportunity we need." Grayson made his decision. "Prepare a scouting mission. If there's even a chance of turning one of their own against them, we have to take it." The part ends with a shot of a lone human shuttle departing Earth's atmosphere, heading toward the mysterious coordinates. The stakes were higher than ever, and the line between ally and enemy blurred as humanity's fight for survival entered a new phase. The turning tide. The human shuttle, a sleek black craft with limited firepower but high stealth capability, drifted silently through the void. Admiral Grayson had chosen its crew carefully. 3 of humanity's finest: Captain Sarah Mitchell, Dr. Elena Vasquez, and Lieutenant Noah Carter, a tactical genius and skilled linguist. Their mission was simple in theory but perilous in execution: investigate the mysterious coordinates sent by the alien defector and determine if humanity had a potential ally among its enemies. Approaching the designated coordinates, Vasquez announced, her voice tense as the shuttle systems scanned the surrounding space. A massive structure emerged from the darkness, a derelict alien station, its once glimmering hull now scared and lifeless. Faint lights flickered within, and the shuttle's sensors detected minimal energy signatures. "Looks like a trap," Mitchell muttered, her hand resting on the sidearm strapped to her hip. "Maybe," Carter replied, his sharp eyes glued to the readouts. "But if someone's in there, they're not in great shape. No weapons systems active, and life support is running on fumes." Mitchell nodded. "Let's suit up. If this is a trap, we'll spring it on our terms." First contact with an ally. The team boarded the station cautiously, their boots echoing against the metal floors. The air inside was cold and thin, forcing them to rely on their suits' oxygen supplies. The dim lighting cast eerie shadows, and every creak of the structure set their nerves on edge. In the central chamber, they found their contact, Lekral Taz, the alien scientist who had sent the transmission. His translucent skin glowed faintly, and his bioluminescent veins pulsed irregularly, a sign of exhaustion or fear. "You came," Taz said, his voice shaky but clear. "And you risked your life to contact us," Vasquez replied. "Why?" Taz hesitated, his glowing eyes shifting between the humans. "Because your survival may be the galaxy's only hope. The Dominion is a cancer. It devours everything it touches. My people, we thought we were the apex predators, but now we see our own extinction in your defiance. If we cannot defeat you, the Dominion will fracture." Mitchell stepped forward. "You're saying we can win?" Taz nodded. "Yes, but not by brute force. The Dominion thrives on fear and subjugation. You have already achieved what no other species has. You've made them doubt their own supremacy. I can help you exploit that. A plan to cripple the Dominion." Back on Earth, the intelligence gathered by Taz was a revelation. The Dominion's power, while vast, was not without its vulnerabilities. The aliens relied heavily on centralized command structures, and their fleets were controlled by a network of supercomputers housed on key command ships. Destroying even one of these ships could throw an entire fleet into disarray. Admiral Grayson called a war council, attended by military leaders, scientists, and representatives from humanity's fledgling alliances with smaller alien species. "Taz's information gives us a target," Grayson began, his voice steady but urgent. "The Dominion flagship overseeing the invasion is the Zeractol. It's not just their command center, it's their Achilles heel. If we take it out, their forces will be paralyzed long enough for us to regroup and push them back." Captain Mitchell, who had quickly gained a reputation for her bold strategies, spoke up. "We'll need more than brute force. The Zeractol is heavily defended. A direct assault would be suicide. Which is why we won't attack it directly," Vasquez interjected, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Taz provided us with schematics of their energy cores. If we can infiltrate the ship and disable its core, we can force an overload. It'll destroy the ship from the inside out." The room fell silent as the enormity of the plan sank in. Finally, Grayson spoke. "We'll need our best for this mission. Mitchell, assemble a strike team. This is our chance to turn the tide, and we can't afford to fail." The infiltration begins. The strike team, composed of elite soldiers and engineers, launched in a modified stealth cruiser. Among them was Taz, who insisted on guiding them through the Zeractol. "I know its systems better than anyone," he had said. "You'll need me to get past their defenses." As the cruiser approached the Dominion flagship, the tension was palpable. The Zeractol was a behemoth, its surface bristling with weapons and shimmering with energy shields. But thanks to Taz's knowledge, the team found a weak point, a maintenance hatch near the ship's engine core. "We're in," Mitchell whispered as the cruiser docked. The team moved swiftly and silently through the ship's corridors, their advanced camouflage gear rendering them nearly invisible. Taz led the way, disabling security systems and guiding them past patrols. Sabotage and sacrifice. The engine core was a labyrinth of glowing conduits and humming machinery. As the team set the charges, the air grew thick with tension. They knew they were deep in enemy territory, and any mistake could be fatal. Suddenly, an alarm blared. The Dominion had detected the intruders. Within moments, the corridors were filled with the sound of alien soldiers closing in. "Hold them off," Mitchell shouted, taking cover behind a console. The team fought fiercely, their weapons cutting through waves of alien soldiers. But the odds were overwhelming. One by one, the humans fell, buying precious time for Vasquez and Taz to finish setting the charges. "You have to go," Taz urged as he sealed the final explosive. "I'll stay and ensure the detonation sequence isn't interrupted." "No," Vasquez protested. "We won't leave you behind." "This is my redemption," Taz said, his glowing eyes meeting hers. "Go, save your people." The explosion and escape. As the humans retreated, Taz stayed behind, holding off the Dominion forces with a weapon he had salvaged from the ship's armory. His last act was to trigger the detonation sequence, his faint smile a testament to the strange bond he had formed with the humans. The charges exploded, sending a chain reaction through the Zeractal. The flagship's energy core imploded, its destruction visible even from Earth. The Dominion fleet, now leaderless and disorganized, fell into chaos. The surviving members of the strike team barely escaped in their cruiser, their faces a mixture of grief and triumph. A shift in the war. The destruction of the Zeractal was a turning point. Across the galaxy, news spread of humanity's victory, inspiring resistance movements on countless worlds. Even within the Dominion, cracks began to form as factions questioned the wisdom of continuing the war. On Earth, Admiral Grayson addressed a united world. "Today, we proved that no force, no matter how powerful, can break the human spirit. But our fight is far from over. Together, we will push the Dominion back and ensure the galaxy knows the strength of humanity." The part ends with a montage of humanity's renewed efforts. Fleets being constructed, alliances being forged, and a people more united than ever, preparing to take the fight to the stars. Sacrifices made. The destruction of the Zeractal sent shockwaves through both sides of the conflict. On Earth, it became a symbol of hope, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Across the Dominion, however, it marked a moment of chaos and desperation. But even as humanity celebrated this critical victory, Admiral Grayson and his commanders knew the cost had been staggering, and that the war was far from over. The mood aboard the UNS Resolute was tense as Grayson reviewed the latest reports. Civilian morale had surged, but so had the intensity of the alien counterattacks. Without the Zeractal to guide them, Dominion fleets were acting erratically, launching devastating, disorganized assaults on Earth's strongholds in a bid to regain control. The aliens might be fragmented, but they were far from defeated. "Admiral," Lieutenant Carter said, stepping into the war room. His face was grim. "New intelligence from the Eastern Front. We've lost the Jakarta defense grid. Civilians are evacuating, but the casualties..." He hesitated, then added, "They're staggering." "Sir." Grayson leaned heavily on the table, his fingers gripping its edge. "How many?" "Initial estimates put it at over 100,000, Carter replied. "The Dominion hit us harder than we anticipated. Their ground forces are adapting. They've shifted to brute force tactics, targeting population centers." Grayson's jaw tightened, "So they're lashing out in desperation." "Yes, sir," Carter said, "and it's working. If we don't find a way to counter their new strategy, we'll lose everything we've gained." A grim strategy. In the underground bunkers beneath Geneva, humanity's leaders gathered for an emergency summit. Scientists, military strategists, and political figures debated their options, but the atmosphere was heavy with exhaustion and loss. The war had taken its toll, and now, with the stakes higher than ever, they were faced with an impossible decision. "We can't defend every city," General Nakamura said bluntly, his voice cutting through the room like a knife. "Our forces are spread too thin. If we try, we'll lose everything. We need to consolidate our defenses around key locations, areas that are strategically vital to our survival. "You're talking about abandoning millions of people," said Ambassador Cho, her voice trembling with anger. "Entire regions will be left defenseless." Nakamura met her gaze without flinching. "And if we don't make this sacrifice, those millions will still die, along with everyone else. We have to think about the bigger picture." The room fell silent. It was Grayson who finally spoke. "General Nakamura is right. As much as it pains me to say it, we have to prioritize. This war won't be won by holding ground. It'll be won by outsmarting the Dominion. We need to focus on breaking their back, not protecting every inch of soil." The decision was made, and it was a bitter one. Evacuation orders were issued for cities deemed indefensible, and military resources were redirected to key strongholds. The message to the people was clear. Sacrifices would be necessary, but the fight would continue. Evacuations under fire. The evacuation of Jakarta was one of the most harrowing operations of the war. Dominion ground forces had entrenched themselves in the city, and human soldiers fought desperately to hold them at bay while civilians were airlifted to safety. Captain Sarah Mitchell, now a veteran of countless battles, led her unit through the chaos. The streets were a war zone, filled with the sounds of gunfire, explosions, and the cries of those caught in the crossfire. "Move, move, move," Mitchell shouted, waving civilians toward the waiting transport ships. "Keep your heads down and don't stop for anything." A group of children clung to her as she guided them through the rubble, her rifle slung across her back. Overhead, alien fighters screamed through the sky, strafing the area with bursts of plasma. Mitchell's heart pounded, but she didn't let it show. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. Behind her, one of her soldiers called out, "Captain, we've got incoming. Multiple hostiles, closing fast." Mitchell turned to see a squad of Dominion warriors advancing through the smoke, their massive forms illuminated by the glow of their weapons. She quickly dropped the children off with another soldier and raised her rifle. "Hold the line," she commanded. "We're the only thing standing between these people and those monsters. Make every shot count." The ensuing battle was brutal. Mitchell's unit fought with everything they had, but the Dominion forces were relentless. One by one, her soldiers fell, their sacrifices buying precious minutes for the evacuation to continue. By the time the last transport ship lifted off, Mitchell was among the few left standing. She collapsed against a wall, her body battered, and her heart heavy. The city was lost, but the civilians were safe. It was a hollow victory, but a victory nonetheless. A glimmer of hope. As humanity's forces regrouped, a surprising development occurred. Messages began to arrive from across the galaxy. Encrypted transmissions from species that had suffered under the Dominion's rule. Inspired by humanity's defiance, these species were organizing resistance movements of their own. On a secure channel, Grayson spoke with the leader of one such group, a reptilian warrior named Kellera, who had defected from the Dominion. Her voice was rough and full of conviction. "Your people have done what we thought was impossible," Kellera said. "You've shown the galaxy that the Dominion can bleed. My people are ready to fight alongside you, but we need your help. We need weapons, training, and a chance to strike back." Grayson nodded, his expression determined. "You'll have it. Together, we can bring the Dominion to its knees." The alliance with Kellera's people marked a turning point. For the first time, humanity was not fighting alone. Across the galaxy, resistance movements began to rise, striking at the Dominion's supply lines and outposts. The war was no longer just about Earth. It was about liberation on a galactic scale, a costly advance. With their new allies, humanity launched a series of daring offensives. These operations pushed the Dominion further back, but each victory came at a steep price. Cities were lost, heroes fell, and the scars of war grew deeper. One particularly costly battle took place in the skies above South America, where a Dominion fleet attempted to destroy Earth's last major orbital defense platform. The battle raged for hours, with human and alien ships weaving through a deadly dance of fire and metal. In the end, The platform was saved, but at the cost of dozens of ships and hundreds of lives. Among the fallen was Lieutenant Carter, who had volunteered to lead a diversionary assault that drew the Dominion's fire away from the platform. His loss was a devastating blow to Grayson and the rest of the crew aboard the Resolute. But even in their grief, they found strength in his sacrifice. Carter's actions had saved millions, and his name became a rallying cry for those who continued the fight. The burden of leadership. As the war dragged on, Grayson found himself increasingly weighed down by the decisions he had to make. Every battle, every loss, every sacrifice, it all rested on his shoulders. Yet he pressed on, driven by the knowledge that humanity's survival depended on his resolve. One night, alone in his quarters, he stared out the window at the stars. The weight of the war threatened to crush him, but he refused to give in. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," he whispered. "We're fighting for the galaxy. For a future where no one has to live under the Dominion's shadow." The part ends with Grayson standing tall, his eyes filled with determination. The sacrifices had been great, but the fight was far from over. Humanity and its allies were ready to push forward, no matter the cost. The final assault. The war had reached its climax. After months of relentless fighting, humanity and its newfound allies stood on the precipice of a decisive battle. The Dominion had retreated to their fortress world, Vraxis Prime, a heavily fortified planet at the heart of their empire. It was here that the Dominion's remaining leadership had gathered, clinging desperately to their fading power. If Vraxis Prime fell, the Dominion would crumble, and the galaxy would finally be free. Admiral Grayson stood before the massive holographic display in the UNS Resolute's war room. Around him were representatives from humanity's military and its allied forces, a diverse coalition of species that had once been enemies but were now bound by a shared goal. "Our target is the Dominion capital," Grayson began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Vraxis Prime is their last stronghold. Its defenses are formidable, an orbital fleet, ground-based planetary shields, and anti-aircraft systems that can cut through anything we send their way. But if we take it, the Dominion is finished." Helra, the reptilian leader of one of the largest resistance groups, stepped forward. Her scales shimmered under the room's pale light. "My people have fought against Vraxis Prime's defenses before. It's a fortress, yes, but it's not invincible. Their planetary shields require an enormous amount of energy. If we can take out their power stations, the shields will fall." Grayson nodded. "Then that's our plan. A multi-pronged assault. Our fleet will engage the orbital defenses, our ground forces will infiltrate and disable the shield generators, and once the shields are down, we'll hit their command center with everything we've got." Preparing for the battle. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Fleets were assembled, weapons calibrated, and soldiers briefed. On board the Resolute, Captain Sarah Mitchell led intensive training sessions for the ground forces, drilling them on the specifics of the mission. "This is it, people," Mitchell said, addressing her troops in the hangar bay. "We've been through hell to get here, and now we have the chance to end this war. The Dominion thinks they're untouchable behind their shields, but we're going to prove them wrong. Stay sharp, watch each other's backs, and remember what we're fighting for." Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked tirelessly in the science lab, fine-tuning a new weapon designed to disrupt the Dominion's communications. "If we can blind them, even for a few minutes, it'll create an opening for our forces," she explained to her team. The weapon, a device capable of emitting a massive EMP pulse, was risky to deploy but could turn the tide of the battle. In the quiet moments before the assault, Grayson recorded a message to be broadcast to all of humanity and its allies. Standing in his quarters, he spoke with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "To everyone who has fought, suffered, and sacrificed in this war, this is our moment. The Dominion has ruled through fear and oppression for too long, but today we stand united, not as humans or aliens, but as beings who refuse to live under tyranny. We fight for freedom, for hope, and for the future. Together, we will prevail. The battle in orbit. The assault on Vraxis Prime began with a coordinated attack on its orbital defenses. The Dominion fleet, though reduced by months of attrition, was still formidable. Massive warships bristling with weapons awaited the coalition forces, and as the two fleets collided, the void of space erupted in a symphony of explosions and laser fire. The Resolute led the charge, its advanced shielding and firepower allowing it to withstand the Dominion's initial barrage. Grayson stood on the bridge, issuing orders with calm precision. Target their carriers first. We can't let them deploy reinforcements. Calra's fleet, composed of sleek, agile ships designed for hit-and-run tactics, darted through the chaos, exploiting weaknesses in the Dominion's formation. Their flagship is vulnerable. Calra's voice crackled over the comms. Focus fire on its engines. Despite their efforts, the battle was grueling. Dominion warships unleashed waves of drones, forcing the coalition forces into frantic evasive maneuvers. Several Allied ships were destroyed, their fiery wreckage a sobering reminder of the cost of the war. The ground infiltration. While the battle raged in orbit, Mitchell and her team descended to the surface of Vraxis Prime in stealth transports. The planet's surface was a harsh, volcanic wasteland, dotted with towering spires and massive industrial complexes. The shield generators were located deep within a heavily guarded facility, and getting to them required navigating a labyrinth of tunnels and outposts. "Stay low and keep moving," Mitchell whispered, leading her squad through the shadows. Tensions were high as they avoided patrols of Dominion soldiers, their massive frames casting eerie silhouettes in the flickering light of the lava flows. As they approached the facility, the squad encountered heavy resistance. Dominion warriors, armed with melee weapons and plasma cannons, engaged them in brutal combat. Mitchell's team fought with everything they had, using their knowledge of human tactics to outmaneuver the enemy. Inside the facility, Vasquez and a team of engineers worked to disable the shield generators. The process was painstaking, requiring them to bypass layers of security systems while under constant attack. Almost there, Vasquez shouted, her hands flying over the console. "Just hold them off a little longer." Mitchell, bleeding from a wound on her shoulder, barked orders to her remaining troops. "We're not leaving until those shields are down. Hold the line." Finally, with a deafening hum, the shield generators powered down. Vasquez collapsed against the console, her face streaked with sweat. "It's done. The shields are down." The final strike. With the planetary shields disabled, the Coalition fleet launched its final attack on the Dominion Command Center. Massive orbital cannons rained destruction on the surface, while dropships deployed ground forces to secure key positions. Inside the Dominion's command bunker, Supreme Commander Vrex Zilkar watched the chaos unfold with a mixture of rage and desperation. How could this happen? He snarled, his mandibles clicking furiously. They're primitives. They should not have been able to. He was interrupted by a blinding explosion as coalition forces breached the bunker. Leading the charge was Mitchell, her rifle raised as she confronted the alien leader. "It's over, Zilkar," she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into her features. "Surrender, or we'll end this the hard way." Zilkar roared in defiance, lunging at Mitchell with a blade-like appendage. The two clashed in a brutal fight, their movements a blur of speed and ferocity. Finally, with a well-timed strike, Mitchell brought the alien leader down. The cost of victory. The battle was won, but the aftermath was sobering. Vraxis Prime lay in ruins, and the Dominion's forces were in disarray. Across the galaxy, resistance movements celebrated their newfound freedom, but the cost had been staggering. Millions had died, and entire worlds had been scared by the conflict. On Earth, Grayson addressed the Coalition. "We have achieved what many thought was impossible. The Dominion has fallen, but our work is not done. Together, we must rebuild, not just our worlds, but the bonds that unite us. This victory belongs to all of us." As the part concludes, a montage shows humanity and its allies working together to heal the galaxy. Soldiers return home, families reunite, and new alliances are forged. The stars, once a symbol of fear, now shine as beacons of hope. Victory and reflection. The galaxy stood still, as if holding its breath in the wake of the Dominion's collapse. Vraxis Prime, once the shining symbol of the Dominion's tyranny, now lay in smoldering ruins. Across the coalition, a wave of relief swept over millions. The war was over, and humanity had played a pivotal role in securing a future free of oppression. But victory, as sweet as it was, came with a heavy burden. Admiral Grayson stood on the observation deck of the UNS Resolute, gazing at the stars. The scars of war were etched deeply into his face, but his eyes held a mixture of exhaustion and quiet pride. Around him, the bridge crew worked silently, their movements slower than usual as the weight of what they had accomplished began to settle in. A soft chime alerted him to an incoming communication. The holographic display blinked to life, revealing Kelra, the reptilian resistance leader, whose people had been vital in the final assault. "Admiral," Kelra began, her voice firm yet tinged with gratitude. "On behalf of my people, and all those who suffered under the Dominion's rule, I thank you. Humanity has done what we could not. You've given us hope." Grayson inclined his head. "The credit belongs to all of us. Without the bravery of your people, and every species that joined the coalition, we wouldn't be here." Kelra nodded. "The Dominion fractured when their leadership fell, but remnants of their fleets remain scattered. We must ensure they cannot rise again." Grayson's jaw tightened. "We'll see to it, but first, we need to heal." The cost of war. The full extent of the war's devastation became apparent in the days following the battle. Earth had lost nearly a third of its population, with major cities reduced to rubble. Across the galaxy, allied worlds reported similar losses. Refugees flooded into hastily established camps, their faces a haunting reminder of the price of freedom. Captain Sarah Mitchell returned to Earth with her surviving troops, stepping off the transport ship into a landscape she barely recognized. Chicago, once a vibrant city, was now a shadow of its former self. Buildings stood as skeletal remains, and the streets were filled with makeshift shelters. Mitchell walked through the ruins, her shoulders still bandaged from the battle on Vraxis Prime. A young girl ran up to her, clutching a tattered stuffed animal. "Are you one of the soldiers who saved us?" the girl asked, her voice small, but filled with hope. Mitchell knelt, forcing a smile despite the lump in her throat. "We all saved each other," she replied, handing the girl a ration pack from her belt. "And now, it's time to rebuild." The Galactic Council. In the aftermath of the Dominion's fall, a historic meeting was convened on the neutral planet of Arthalis. Representatives from every species in the coalition, including humanity, gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the shadow of oppression no longer loomed over the proceedings. Admiral Grayson and Dr. Vasquez represented humanity. The Grand Chamber, a marvel of alien architecture with crystalline walls that refracted light into a kaleidoscope of colors, was filled with voices debating how to move forward. Caldera stood at the center of the chamber. The Dominion ruled through fear and division. She said, her voice carrying a quiet intensity, "If we are to prevent such tyranny from rising again, we must stand together. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as equals." Grayson stepped forward. "Unity brought us victory, but maintaining it will require effort and trust. Humanity is willing to share what we've learned, not just our technology, but our resilience. Together, we can build a future where no species fears another." The Council voted to establish a Galactic Concord, a coalition of species dedicated to peace and mutual support. Humanity, once seen as a fledgling race, was given a prominent role in shaping the new order. Rebuilding Earth. Back on Earth, efforts to rebuild began in earnest. Nations that had once been divided by politics and borders now worked side by side. Engineers and architects designed cities that were not only more resilient but also symbols of humanity's determination to rise from the ashes. In one of the refugee camps, Dr. Vasquez oversaw a medical unit providing aid to survivors. She worked tirelessly, using what little resources they had to treat injuries and illnesses. One day, she noticed an elderly man watching her with a solemn expression. "You're one of the heroes, aren't you?" the man asked, his voice heavy with emotion. "I'm just a scientist," Vasquez replied, shaking her head. "The real heroes are the ones who didn't come back." The man smiled faintly. "Heroes aren't just the ones who fight. They're the ones who give us hope. And you've done that. A new role for humanity." As the Galactic Concord began to take shape, humanity found itself thrust into a leadership role. The lessons learned during the war, of unity, sacrifice, and resilience, became the foundation of Earth's contributions to the Concord. Human diplomats traveled to distant worlds, fostering alliances and resolving conflicts. Scientists shared advancements that helped devastated planets recover. Mitchell, now promoted to general, was tasked with training a new generation of soldiers, not for war, but for peacekeeping. She established the Interstellar Defense Corps, a coalition force designed to protect vulnerable worlds from the remnants of the Dominion and other threats. "We're not just soldiers anymore," Mitchell told her recruits. "We're guardians. We fight so others don't have to." The legacy of the fallen. A monument was erected in the heart of what remained of New York City, a towering structure engraved with the names of every individual who had sacrificed their life in the war. It became a place of pilgrimage, where survivors and their families could reflect and remember. One evening, Grayson stood before the monument, his uniform crisp, but his expression weary. Vasquez joined him, carrying a small bouquet of flowers. "They'll never be forgotten," she said softly, placing the flowers at the base of the monument. "No," Grayson replied, "but we owe it to them to make sure this never happens again." A hopeful future. The final scenes shift across the galaxy. On a distant colony world, humans and aliens work together to terraform the barren landscape, planting seeds that will one day grow into forests. A Dominion fleet fragment surrenders to the Galactic Concord, their ship stripped of weapons, and their crew offered a chance at a peaceful life. Children of different species play together under the twin suns of an alien world, their laughter echoing through the air. The part ends with a panoramic view of Earth from space, its surface scared but healing. The voice of Admiral Grayson echoes over the scene. "We faced the unimaginable and endured the unthinkable. We fought, we bled, and we sacrificed. But in the end, we emerged stronger. Humanity has proven that even in the darkest times, we can be a beacon of hope. And now, as we look to the stars, we know one thing for certain: the future belongs to all of us." The camera pans out, revealing the Galactic Concord fleet orbiting Earth, a symbol of unity and peace. The screen fades to black, and the words appear. The end of the war, the beginning of a new era.